it turns out I am okay with I am not okay with this. So it's the irony of the... What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about the brand new Netflix coming-of-age comedic romance-driven show that is only 20 to 30 minutes an episode, so it was a nice little binge. I need you in the comments down below. Is this a show you were looking forward to? How did you feel about it? And let's get right into it. So I am not okay with this. Sydney is a teenage girl navigating the trials and tribulations of high school while dealing with the complexities of her family, her budding sexuality, and mysterious superpowers just beginning to awaken deep within her. This show stars Sophia Lillis as Sydney, the title character. We know her from It. We also know Wyatt Oleff from It, who plays Stanley in this show as well as he does in It, so it wasn't hard to remember his name, but those two are really the main two characters. We have the friend, we have the family, we have her dealing with all of these things that you deal with in a typical coming-of-age story. But the way that the story is told through voiceover, of all things, which is something I normally take issue with because it's always, well, it's not always, it is normally used for expositional purposes. And we look at the most recent Netflix movie, The Last Thing He Wanted. That entire film is filled with voiceover, but all it's doing is telling us things that we could figure out. And it's also telling us things that didn't really have to do with that film. But normally it's just exposition, right? Well, in this show, I thought it worked so well because she is taking us on this journey, not only this personal journey, dealing with what happened to her father, not only understanding that maybe one particular friendship is more than that, but also the fact that we're getting something within the show that we don't normally get with a show like this, and that's the fact that she has superpowers. And that was a really cool twist. That was a really cool element that I wasn't even expecting because I went into the show, and I rarely do this, completely blind. I had no clue the episodes were so short. I had no clue that she had superpowers. So when that is revealed in the show, and it isn't a spoiler because it was all across the marketing, I went back and I watched the trailers after I watched this show, and I saw that it was very evident that was part of what it was. But not knowing that was like, oh, okay, well, that's an odd element to throw in there. Let's see if it works. A recent show that came out, Raising Dion, did a similar thing, but it was less a coming-of-age story and more of dealing with emotional trauma. But there's definitely emotional trauma in here, right? She's dealing with the loss of her father, and they still don't necessarily know how to cope. Now, maybe there's more behind what happened. We don't learn that within the first few episodes, but as we go, we learn more about her. We learn more about her friend Dina. We learn more about pretty much everyone involved, and that's why I had so much fun with this, is because we explore these side characters much more than anticipated. Sydney is a great character, and I'm glad the focus was on her for the most part. The story is told through her perspective, but we also get to spend some time with Stanley. We get to spend some time with Liam, her brother. We get to spend some time. There's this ongoing joke with her mother every time she has to do something. It involves one of her friend's dogs. And I like those consistent elements within the script. And then talking about the script and the dialogue, it's real, man. I mean, nothing about this show feels shoehorned. Nothing about this show feels like it's being shoved into your face. It's real. It feels like we are on this journey with her and we understand what she's going through, even though we may not necessarily understand it. And even if we're approaching it from an outsider's perspective, and obviously we're going to be doing that with the superpower element, but these other things, like losing a family member, dealing with your sexuality, trying to understand who you are and who you're trying to be deep down. And it's not one of those things that the writers are very obvious with what they want you to believe about certain things. It's not necessarily a political show. It's just following this girl around. It's following Sydney and her journey on discovering who she is emotionally, how she fits in with her best friend and her group of friends, which is not necessarily who she wants to be with. And then what does she do with Stanley? Because Stanley's like, listen, I like you. It's very clear. It's evident that I like you. How is she going to handle that? But then you have the fact that she's dealing with these powers, and every single time she gets angry, every time she gets stressed out, something happens. I'm not going to say what happens, but something always happens, and sometimes that can lead to tragedy. That can lead to someone else seeing this situation happening, which made for a very interesting story on top of what we were getting with the coming-of-age aspect. And y'all know me. I like superheroes, I like superpowers, and this isn't necessarily a superhero show, but there's a really cool element. And even though I did want a bit more from certain elements of the story, part of that has to do with the fact that these episodes are so short. And I rarely say this, but maybe they needed to be a tad bit longer. Some episodes were only like 22 minutes long, right? So if we could get 8 more minutes in that specific episode, or if we could get one more element on top of this story, that would have been perfect. But then, binging this was one of the easiest binges I've had in a long, long time. It was so easy to get through. The characters are so likable, and you fall in love with these actors and actresses. So, overall, if you're asking, is this worth a binge? Absolutely. One of the most bingeable shows I've seen this year, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, before I give you guys my score, thank you so much for watching this non-spoiler Netflix review. If you enjoy these kinds of videos, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. I'm going solid 8 out of 10, and 80% for I am not okay with this. I'm pretty okay with it, man. It's a good show. It's a surprising show on Netflix. And I do think you're going to relate to it a bit more if you are a girl coming of age, because there are those elements that I didn't relate to as much, but it hits that target audience for sure. So thank you guys again for watching this. I'll be back tomorrow with plenty more videos. The Invisible Man coming soon. I'll see you guys later.